So, what makes a woman from the West decide to embrace Islam? It's a faith that's often surrounded by so much controversy and, let's be honest, a ton of misunderstanding. Today, we're going to dive into the personal stories of several women who converted to really understand the motivations and the incredibly shifts in thinking that led them to this huge, life-changing decision. For so many of them, the journey didn't start with some kind of attraction to Islam. Actually, it was the opposite. It started with a deep-seated fear. This quote just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? A fear that's shaped by media headlines and stereotypes. And that's the fear they had to confront and, in the end, completely overcome. So where does a journey like this even begin? Well, for a lot of these women, it's kind of like a split screen in their minds. On one side, they're grappling with these huge spiritual questions about their own lives and beliefs. And on the other, they're holding on to all these common and often pretty negative ideas about Islam that they've just picked up from the world around them. And this slide just lays that internal conflict bare, right? On one hand, you've got the stereotypes everyone's heard, that Muslim women are oppressed, that the hijab is this awful symbol. But on the other side, there's this much more personal, internal struggle going on. They were wrestling with these big theological questions, like the idea of the Trinity. That just didn't feel logical to them. And, when they tried to get answers from within their own religions, they just hit a wall. They were basically told to stop asking so many questions and to just have faith. So that feeling of not getting straight, logical answers, that's what really pushed them to start looking somewhere else. Okay, so that search for answers, that's what kicks off the next phase of their journey. And this wasn't some passive thing where they just accepted a new faith. No, this was an active and honestly a really skeptical investigation. They basically became detectives, dead set on finding the truth for themselves. And this is what's so wild. Their first motive, a lot of them didn't pick up the Quran to find God. They picked it up to prove it wrong. They were hunting for the flaws, the contradictions, the proof that all their negative ideas were right. Some were even trying to save their Muslim friends from what they thought was a restrictive religion. And they didn't just skim it either. Their method was actually pretty systematic. It all started with reading the Quran, but they were specifically looking for errors. That hunt naturally led them to dig into the thing they were most worried about, the rights and role of women in Islam. But that's where things took a very unexpected turn. But here's the twist. Instead of finding all those mistakes they were so sure were there, they found things that completely flipped their world upside down. They found a faith that wasn't just about rituals, but a whole way of life. They found what they described as scientific facts and literary miracles in the book. And maybe the most shocking discovery of all, they came to believe that Islam didn't oppress women. It actually liberated them. So, all that reading and research laid the foundation, right? But the real switch flip moment, that often came down to one single super powerful personal experience, a moment where all that intellectual curiosity just clicked and turned into a belief they couldn't shake. Let me tell you about this journalist, Lauren Booth. She was stuck in Gaza and challenged this woman in a refugee camp. She basically asked, "Why on earth would you fast when you already have almost nothing?" And the woman's answer just stopped her in her tracks. She said, so simply, that she fasted to remember people who had even less than she did. And that was it. That was the moment. This wasn't about complex theology. It was about seeing, with her own eyes, a faith that can inspire that kind of deep gratitude in the absolute worst circumstances. It was faith being lived, not just talked about. And for her, it totally reframed her entire understanding of God. For another woman, this moment wasn't quiet or reflective. It was intense. After weeks of just devouring information about Islam, she was standing at a crosswalk and she just froze. She couldn't move. She was hit by this one urgent thought. If I step into this road and die right now, knowing in my heart that this is the truth, but not having done anything about it, what happens to me? So that heart-pounding moment at the crosswalk, that's what pushed her and the others to take that final formal step. And that step is called the Shahada. It's the Islamic declaration of faith, this simple but incredibly profound testimony that marks a person's official entry into Islam. Okay, so what happens next? The moment after you make a decision that literally changes your entire life. Well, this new reality brought this immediate, incredible feeling of release, but it also brought the very real and complicated challenge of telling your family and friends. The feeling they all seem to describe right after saying their Shahada, it's just this incredible sense of peace. The feeling that this massive, heavy weight has just been lifted off their shoulders. They talk about feeling light, renewed, like a whole new person. And that ties into this other really powerful theme, the idea of a clean slate. This belief that all of your past mistakes are just wiped away gave them this profound sense of a fresh start, a real chance to begin a totally new chapter of their life with a clear purpose. But then comes the hard part, right? Telling your family. And yeah, it was filled with anxiety. A lot of them kept it a secret at first, and for some, their families found out completely by accident. At the beginning, it was often brushed off as just a weird phase. But over time, when their families saw that they were truly happy, that they were at peace, that concern often turned into acceptance and even respect. And this brings us to what is probably the biggest paradox, the thing a lot of people just don't get. How could adopting practices that are seen as restrictive, like wearing a hijab, actually feel like an act of freedom? The way they explain it, it's like they had to completely redefine what freedom even means. See, in Western culture, we usually think of freedom as freedom from things, from rules, from judgment. But what they found was a totally different kind of liberty. Freedom for a higher purpose. By shifting their focus to pleasing God, they suddenly felt free from that constant crushing weight of what other people think. And this quote just says it all. For one woman who'd spent her whole life wanting to be seen and noticed, the idea of becoming invisible in public was, at first, terrifying. But then, it became freeing. She said that for the first time in her life, she could just exist and experience the world without constantly feeling like she was on stage, performing for everyone else. And they're really, really clear about this one point. Becoming Muslim doesn't mean you have to change your whole culture. They all stress that Islam is a way of life. It's not a culture from one part of the world. It's a message for everyone. You can still be yourself, you can still love your family, and like one woman perfectly put it, you can continue eating your tacos. So when you look at the whole journey from fear and stereotypes all the way to this profound sense of faith, it really challenges our most basic ideas about what liberation is, leaving us with this one big question to chew on. What does it truly mean to be free?